Wanted to conclude with a Heartbreakers question because with my viewers, inevitably they would say you had Stan Lynch on, didn't ask him a Heartbreakers question.
Oh, ask away.
Got to wrap it up here, but you know, the history of the band's pretty well known at this point, and there were many highlights. There are also rough patches. It's called being in a band, it happens with everyone. Um, but obviously, there was something about this combination of players that worked. You can have the greatest players in the world in a room, but if it doesn't click, it doesn't matter who's there, right? You got to make it work in some way. So when you look back at these guys, Howie, Ben, Mike, Tom, that run where you guys really, the 80s era kind of hit the ground really hard. Um, how would you define the Heartbreakers chemistry? What made that work for as long as it did?
Um, well, we were very fortunate. We had a great songwriter. So that's huge. We had a guy who could walk in and on his worst day had a pretty good idea, like a pretty good story going. And so we all as a band reacted to we started kind of there. Like we'd start with, I don't want to be the one to kill this song. I want to be the one to help this song. And we all had that same common interest and we all really liked each other. And the other thing that the chemistry was, we all didn't have to play at the same time. We had this innate ability to be like, it would go like this, like it was,
Mm.
um, we would intersect in beautiful ways as opposed to this. Like it was what you didn't play was as more important than what you did play. So and we just knew it. Somehow it was never discussed. The band was almost monosyllabic with each other for 20 years. It was like, yep, nope, that'll work. Yeah, don't do that. It was literally they were that chill of a group of guys. No, sometimes we'd unbolt, but we go nuts and scream and dance around the room and flip out. But 90% of the time it was, oh, you're going to go with that? Well, then I'm going to go with that. And it was like we were dressing the same mannequin always, and the mannequin being the song. We were always looking for the right. And, and Benmont is a brilliant, just a naturally, he's trained, but he's also just naturally skilled, like a Garth Hudson. He's one of those guys that can just, if it's one note, he found it. I don't know where he found that one note, but that's a money note. That's a beauty. And he was smart enough not to embellish. He would just, when you watch Benmont play the most complicated song, sometimes it was three fingers and one would be lifting up, or, it was like, wow. But if you took his faders out of the mix, man, it was gone. And Michael was the same way. Brilliant to finding the alternate positions on the guitar. Just had a gift for not using all six strings. Like he'd only use two or three. Tom, great rhythm guitar player. I mean, really great. Had a feel with the back of his hand without a pick that he would just could show you as a drummer. This is the body language I'm looking for, and he could transfer that to you without ever talking about it. How he was a great, brilliant bass player. Ron Blair,
Mm.
another extraordinary musician. Just he would almost like listen, and at the last minute would find all the connective tissue, and everybody knew their real estate. Like we all knew where we lived to create the proscenium. We all knew where we were in the frame, and it was just like I said, no plan. It was never like we didn't sit down and go, hey, this is what a great band sounds like. It was really, I think, really good fortune but I have to say it started with, we had a very creative guy who was very driven and was not afraid to come in with ideas. Even if some of them didn't work, he'd just come in with a legal pad. He'd been working all night, and it was a good band, and we played a lot of gigs, which I also think people don't get to do as much anymore. We played 1,000 gigs, man, to where we could almost, it was telepathy at that point, you didn't even look up. You didn't have to look at the guys. It was almost like an insult if they did look at you. It was like, what did I do wrong? If, oh God, they're looking at me, you know? So I love that. And I love being in a band today for the same reason, because I want that again. I'm greedy. That's a very addictive situation, So I'm always looking for that with these guys. And it probably frustrates them too, because they're not that band and they shouldn't be, but at least they acknowledge the same way I do that that was a good band and it's not a bad template, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.